Hello everyone and welcome back to another video by C.L. Aldridge Art. We continue the coloring adventure of the thank you cards. I wanted to play a little catch up, talk about the day, and just generally hang with my video people out there. If this is your first time here, my name is Christine Aldridge. I am C.L. Aldridge Art. If you don't know where to find me, you can, of course, like and subscribe to my YouTube channel here. I do a live show every Sunday at 2 o'clock Eastern Standard Time. If you would like to subscribe to me or follow me on Facebook, here is Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter. I'm easy to find if you know the C.L. Aldridge Art part. So we left off on Sunday. I think that I had just started this little one, and this is how it turned out. And I did this with the Pretty Excellent watercolors. It was my very first time using them, and so it took me a little while to work and rework this until I was happy enough with it to sign it and call it done. But I think it turned out adorable, and it was a great learning experience. I think that I might, every time I look at these things, I end up adding a little detail or two. So I might add just a couple of dots in that flower there. And so that is, these two were the Derwent Inktons only. The Inktons and the Graphitins. This was the Pretty Excellent watercolors. This was the other one, the first one that we did on Sunday. And as you can see, I added white, just the white Uniball around the edges, the top of the purple tulip, just to give it some definition and more define it, since it's two layers of flower sitting on top of each other. So I kept looking at it, and I thought, this needs a little definition. So I did that. And once again, these are thank you cards that I'm working on for people that have sent me PayPal or who have sent me a gift over Christmas and my birthday of this year. This one I worked on. This was the page that I traced from my book, Flowers and Flyers. I traced it onto this cardstock, adapted it a little to leave other parts of the drawings out. I did this one with Inktons. And, of course, I'm much more familiar with my Inktons than I am with any of these other mediums yet. And, I can see that I left a part of this one out. Let's just catch that right now. I called it done, and it wasn't. So I was able to do a little finer work with the Inktons than I am yet able to manage with the watercolors. But I'm getting there with the watercolors. And this one is one of my favorites so far. Then I worked a little bit. I did swatch out 2 sets of water mediums over the last couple of days. The first one well, actually several sets. And I did want to show these to you because I haven't done it. This is, people who know my swatch book know that I don't usually make a messy swatch. But I was playing a little bit because this color, this racing green, was so dark that I, kept trying to grab some of it out and see if I could get down to what the base color was, which is sort of a bluey green. But a racing green, of course, is a very, very, very dark green. But this is the Derwent Inktense Travel Pan Set. It does have a number of colors that are found in the 72, but it has other colors that are not in the 72, which is wonderful. So it's got the Sun Yellow, which is, this is the Mango, which isn't, the Poppy Red, which is, the Dark Plum, which isn't, the Ultramarine, the Mid Ultramarine, which isn't, the Bright Blue, that is, the Racing Green, that isn't, the Teal Green, that is, the Kiwi, that isn't, the Burnt Yellow Ochre, that isn't, yeah, it isn't, the Natural Brown, that isn't, and the Ink Black, which is. So I think I counted there are 7 colors out of the 12 that are not in the full set of the Inktense 72. So that is, so 72 plus 7 is 79 colors. That is amazing. Okay, then the other sets that I swatched out this last week were the Pretty Excellent watercolors, which I cannot say enough about. I, obviously I don't have the high priced of anything, so I don't know how they compare to that, but I can tell you that the difference between the really super cheap ones that I bought at Walmart and these is night and day. I also swatched out the beautiful Winsor and Cotman, or Winsor and Newton Cotman 24 set here. That's watercolors. This is the Royal and Langnickel Gouache, which is absolutely fantastic. And that is here on my palette. Little, you can see I did a bunch of blending with them and all of that. But I did this swatch, and then I also blended the Scarlet and Cerulean Blue. This is the dark version of that, and this is the lighter version. I always try and blend down some purples. This was sort of an interesting effect. It was not what I was going for, but I loved the fact that I still had some blue apparently on my brush, the cerulean blue, from when I was trying to add the orange red. So the orange red here to the cerulean blue here, and this is what it made. It made this, I was going for a brown, and, I was an orange, and orange and blue will make brown, and it ended up giving me this cool gradient effect. And sometimes you learn about your tools by, accident, by things happening that you don't expect. And then, of course, I was able to get a gorgeous purple. I love my purples. This one is the rose and the ultramarine. So the rose and the ultramarine made this. I couldn't tell you what the ratio was because I just sort of blended them together until I got a color that I liked. This is the Prussian blue and a lemon yellow. Gave me this pretty green. This is the mid yellow and the mauve. So the mid yellow and the mauve made that fascinating color of, it's kind of like the yellow ochre, but it's darker. And then this is the mauve in the middle yellow. And all I did was, this was more yellow, this one was more red. So I just think that's fascinating when you can get two such complementary colors just by mixing different amounts of the same base colors. And then, of course, the crimson red and the Prussian blue. Now that gave a nice dark purple because I had added more blue, but I believe that if I had added more red, it would have given me more of a magenta or a burgundy shade. So that's always something to keep in mind. I do advocate always blending colors together. Play, see what you get. It does help if you know a little bit about what colors do mix together. But you'll know if you've mixed the wrong colors together, because what you'll end up with is some weird shade of brown or gray or something like that that you weren't going for. Now, of course, if you are going for a shade of brown and gray, you want to go ahead and mix complementary colors together. So complementary colors would be like your red and your green will make brown. Then you can add a few different colors in to make that brown other things. But what I do is I encourage people to play with mixing your colors always. And you can see, just use a test sheet and a brush, and you can see what colors you're making. And when you find one you like, write it down. And that's what I do. And so then the second set that I swatched were the Arteza gouache. And these are them. And if you're wondering what the black lines are for, because these types of watercolors, gouache, are more opaque than a regular watercolor, than these. I was testing to see how opaque they were. Like some didn't wash out the black line at all, like the Scarlet. But the Mauve did. And now I don't know, the Royal and Langnickel did not have the pigments written on them. But the Arteza gouache do have the pigments written right on the right on both the tubes and on the packaging. So I did transfer these over, and you can see that the ones that are the most opaque are the ones that have PW6, which is the titanium white, or PW6 is both the white and the titanium white. I believe it has the difference between these two is negligible, but it has to do with, I think, the amount of pigment that might be in them. I don't really know. They look very similar here on the page, and I've heard Cinnamon Cooney over at the Art Sherpa say that your white and your titanium white are very similar. Like if you're out of one, go ahead and use the other. But I know she prefers the titanium white most of the time. Why, I don't actually know. Okay, so on to this. They are very, very rich colors. There are some different colors in the Arteza set that are not in the Royal and Langnickel. For instance, this rose is called also rose over here, but this color is called peach red. And I had messed these up when I did the swatches. I missed this one, and anyway, I missed this one and ended up having to arrow things back and forth so I knew what was what. But this is called peach red, and it's not in any sets at all, but I would call it hot pink. And so, and then this pretty sky blue is different than the cerulean blue. And sorry, this sky blue has white in it. And it's a very, very pretty color. So once again, I got over here. Now, this is Prussian blue and scarlet. So scarlet and Prussian blue, two of the darkest, richest shades. This is with more blue, more red, about half and half, and then with slightly more water. So once again, I was blending for those dark, rich purples. I love this magenta shade. It's deep wine, burgundy, whatever you want to call it. It is absolutely gorgeous. And then, of course, I always like to have a very light green. So this is the sap green and the lemon yellow mixed together. So these two, that one and this one. And then this is a different shade of purple. This is the rose with a tiny amount of the Prussian blue. So the rose and then a teeny tiny speck of the Russian blue gave me this pretty purple, which of course is different than the mauve or the lilac. So, yep, got a blend for those purples. The Viridian green in this set is gorgeous. It is in the Royal and Langnickel too. And of course, my favorite colors are forest green and basically any kind of dusky purple. Love dusky purples. So, like for instance, when I was mixing the Royal and Langnickel, I mixed the rose and the ultramarine for that. I think I said that earlier. Okay, so then of course I set about playing because I don't really know an awful lot about my tools yet, and the way that you learn is to actually use them. Now, obviously, I'm fairly comfortable with my Inktense, so I was able to do those. This is my watercolor, and this, I have to say, did take a while. It's got about 8 layers of colors on it, because I kept losing the contrast, and then finally I went over it with black. You know, I just used like an eyeliner brush, and put in shadows, and then I was much happier with it. So bumping the contrast, I like the multi-variegated leaves very much. I like the way that I was able to work the browns and the oranges. I think that's a really rich look. Overall, I'm very happy with how this one turned out. I once again bumped the contrasts a lot, threw in dark greens, and even some blues into the stems just to give a little visual appeal. Then came the real challenge that I had, and I did this one yesterday. And these actually all started out being purple. And I was just not happy. They were pretty, absolutely pretty. There's no doubt about that. They just weren't what I wanted. So I got the bright idea as I was looking at it to wonder what would happen if I went over the whole flower with a single color and then let those varying shades of purple that were underneath actually sort of act like, natural darkeners to give visual interest. And that is exactly what I did. Let me see what color I used. I used, I believe, the crimson red. So the darkest of the reds. And mixed it up with a fair amount of water and then used it as a wash over the purple. And not only did it give the density that I wanted of color, or more make it a smoother color than they were, because they were looking, with all those various purples that I'd put in, they were looking a little choppy. So I guess what I'm saying is that I, rather than being destined for the trash can, this one actually got saved by thinking outside the box a little bit. And so I laid the burgundy rose over it, or the scarlet, and because it was purple underneath, which is a blue base, it turned all of these flowers this pretty burgundy color. And then I had lost a lot of the definition between the petals, and I thought, well, if I'm going to end up tossing it anyway, I might as well try the Uniball. And look, I just went, oh my goodness, that's perfect. That's exactly the look that I wanted them to have. And so that is a save. And I love the way that I was able to mix just varying amounts of pigment with, I started with a brown wash, and then I used just a little bit darker to make the soil and give it some like texture. And then of course this is a work in progress, by the way. It's not done because I have just finished putting another coat of blue. I decided that I just wanted him to be a solid dark blue with the purple markings. And then I'm going to do May's trick and sparkle him up with some dots. So there's that one. And then this one I am also is a work in progress. Going for the stained glass look, and as you can see, I've got all the color down that I want. I've just started to restore the definition, because see how when I just outlined these with the Graphie tints when I traced it out of my book, and so if you want it to look like stained glass, you've got to add the definition back in. And I am using the because I have this was also the Arteza gouache, but because I have much more control over where the color goes with the Inktense, I am doing the outlines with the Payne's Gray in the Inktense. And so that is where I'm at when I flipped on the camera. And I also just wanted to talk a little bit about art and encouraging all of you to try things like this, to do stuff like this, to apply your artistic vision with a pencil to draw the image, and with some paints maybe to or pencils or whatever. I guess what I want to do is I want to make sure that you all know that art is always accessible to you. And that is where we're going to go when I come back. Okay, hello, and I am back. It has now been several hours since I made the first part of this video. As you can hear by my voice, things have sort of changed. I had gone outside today and walked up to the store, and of course there's a ton of pollen in the air. And so guess whose voice is acting up? I am sorry for that. I will carry on as best I can. This is a reaction that I have to pollen. I was never had allergies until I moved to the East Coast of the United States, and they do seem to just get a little bit worse every year. I have not had my dose of honey this year. Normally I have gone to the farmer's market by now and have honey, but that didn't happen this year, so I don't have an immunity to the pollen. At any rate, we were going to talk about accessible art, and while I talk, I'll work and show you guys what I've done. Once again, I am holding the Derwent Inktense Payne's Gray pencil, and I've been working on this, and I have I admit that I have added a few things since I started this video. Namely, I darkened up the blues in the interior flower, and I added a couple of more layers to the outer ring, and then a highlight ring of a lighter green and white color. I did that by mixing the titanium white into the green until I got a very light shade, and then just added a little tiny highlight around, which is exactly what I did here on the outer petals of these leaves. I mixed yellow with the white and dabbed it on to give the illusion of light. And I've also already ink activated all of the outlines on this side. I left this side to do. Alright, so I wanted to talk about art accessibility and how I truly believe that art should be accessible to everyone, in that I think everyone is an artist. Now, I was lucky enough today to get to see the birth of a new artist. And what I mean by that is that I was over in Becky Z's stream. And Becky, you're going to kill me, but I don't know the full name of your actual channel, but it's Becky. Many of you who subscribe here are going to be familiar with Becky Z, and it's a play on Becky's, BECCI''Z, and I'll put in a link down below. But Becky has been encouraging artist, Chimera66. We know Sabrina is her name, and we know her from being in streams as Chimera66, or Chimera. At any rate, Chimera has drawn a beautiful picture, and Becky volunteered to be the first to color it. She did it for the community in a live stream this afternoon, and it marks the first drawing that Chimera has ever put out there. Chimera, I'm not quite, Sabrina, has ever put out there for our coloring pleasure. Now, I will tell you that the community rallied and the support was awesome. Absolutely awesome. Brought everyone to tears. Of course, the picture itself is very meaningful. Sorry. Hang on. I don't know if my voice is going to hold out or not. In that it came with a story of what it was about. And the broad outlines are that it featured threads of nightmares and dreams being woven together or stitched together, and feathers, of course, which are memories, being stitched together with a needle labeled as life. And it was an image of a girl with long flowing hair, and it was obviously a very meaningful piece of art. And that is what art should be. It should make you feel something. I believe that art is the feeling that you get when you look at the work that somebody has done. Now, a perfect example of this was I saw over on Dee Dee's channel just the other day, and she had just made a trip to, I believe it's the Haight Museum, there in Atlanta, and they have a new, they're featuring a new, exhibition. Thank you. That's the word I was hunting for. Whichever one of you shouted it out, I heard you. A new exhibition. And while she was there, she also picked up a book on an artist who was native to Georgia, and who was a folk artist. I don't remember the gentleman's name. I am sorry. Oh, by the way, I did take a short little pause, and I did look up. Becky's channel is Becky's Color Escape, and there it is. So I strongly recommend that you go and watch her stream dated today, which is April 17th, Wednesday. And this gentleman had, of course, he was formerly a slave. He had no resources of his own. You know, he worked hard all of his life, but in retirement, he didn't have a lot, and so he was given art supplies by a local artist who saw the work that he was doing and supplied him with fancy, art paper and things like that. What he enjoyed drawing on the most were scraps of cardboard and things that had stains and wrinkles that spoke to him. That that he could incorporate the imperfections into his art, and that is art. Seeing the imperfections of things as beautiful. Sorry. And so it was so touching today to see the reception of Sabrina's art by the coloring community, because the story behind it was mesmerizing, to say the least, and that kind of encouragement, and this is where I'm going with this, that kind of encouragement is, it makes all the difference in the world. Now, I will not encourage a bad artist. I mean, if somebody is awful, I will not encourage them. But if somebody is creating things that mean something, that speak to all of us, that is somebody whose work I'm going to encourage and promote and tell everybody about, and you can feel how you want to about it. If it's not for you, then don't color it. If you love it, then color the heck out of it, and do that. Now, all of this, and probably one of the reasons why it means a lot to me right now, is I was encouraged in exactly the same way. I am not so self-possessed that I think that I am a great artist. I am not. I haven't been drawing long enough to be a great artist. I am an artist who draws things that are very popular color. And, I've been lucky enough to have some success with that. There are many thousands of my books out there, and I didn't have to pay people to buy them and that have sold. And I have people color my work on streams and on Facebook, and people that I will never meet and have never met. But it all started with the encouragement of one or two people, and then sort of grew from there. So probably one of the things I'm trying to say is that means an awful lot. So if you are the kind of person who has an influence of any kind, or even if you don't have an influence of any kind, but you can just color the person's work and post it to social media so that other people say, "Ooh, where did you get that?" Then that is a great thing to do. Sabrina was so touched and seemingly so surprised by the fact that everybody liked her work. And she shouldn't have been. It was good. And Becky is the one that has been encouraging her. Because, it isn't until an artist puts their first work out there for the world to see that anybody knows that they exist. So, and I am back. I am sorry if this video has jumped around. Every once in a while, as I'm making one of these, I will say something that I later rethink and decide might not have been a good idea to say. So that is exactly what happened. What I was talking about was not anything I needed to be talking about. So what I'm doing right now is I have gone ahead and pinned this down. As you can see, I finished that outline up. And what I'm trying to do here is get some of this white to let loose so I can mix up with this particular green, this lovely shade of opaque white. Now I'm going to take most of it off my brush and then come back in and do a little dip because I only want a little tiny bit to act as a highlight on these particular leaves. Now, I may not have quite the opacity that I need yet. So I'm going to try and get a little more of this white up. Oops, see how that broke apart? Now this is why on a palette like this, you just want to put a teeny tiny dab of your paint. Now by the way, these are the teeny tiny dabs that I put out to do my original swatch. And I've now been able to do like 3 more cards with them. Now, if you are new to my channel and don't already know, this is certainly not what I do. I don't sit and make little paintings. I actually do draw coloring books. But these designs are, this one is from one of my coloring books. Oh no. And just like that, a learning experience. Pay attention. Pay attention to where you're putting your brush, Christine. I was telling somebody that in the stream today. It wasn't a disaster, it was a learning experience. I think it was in Dee Dee's stream we were talking about something. I was lucky I made a lot of streams today. And of course, when I get into Dee Dee's stream, I have one of the reasons why I miss her stream fairly often is because I do have to occasionally work so I have new drawings and new products and new coloring books and all of that kind of stuff. Oh, back to if you're new here and would like to see my work, there is a playlist. It is labeled C.L. Aldridge Flip-Throughs, and it is flip-through videos of all of 8 of the books that I've created. I believe that there is another one called Celebrating Other Artists, and that is where the flip-throughs of books for an artist that I promote, whose name is Susan Curry, are. And the new book that I am working on, all of my previous books have been either based on flowers, birds, or woodland creatures of sorts, and the new one is about dragons. So I do have an Etsy shop as well. And there are links to all of those things in the descriptions of my videos. I need some more white. There we go. But what I'm making are little thank you cards, little hand-painted thank you cards for some of my subscribers who have generously either donated to the channel or who had a recent birthday, who sent me some absolutely lovely birthday gifts. These particular paints are among the many things that I received. And I truly believe that the best way to say thank you for a gift is to actually use it and show people that you appreciate it and care enough to learn to use it. I am new to watercolor mediums. Sorry if I'm off screen. I am fairly proficient with Derwent Inktense, but otherwise am sort of uninitiated in watercolors in general. So this is all about a learning experience and then bringing that experience to my subscribers to hopefully encourage them to learn too. So are you guys learning anything? Excuse me. Hopefully you're not just learning what not to do. And so I'm sort of bringing you on the adventure of how I'm doing this. All right, I am liking this, guys. I am liking the way that this one has turned out, or is turning out. Now, I did use the painter's tape and taped it down between when I turned the camera off earlier and now. And of course, I've done that in anticipation of doing the background, coloring the background. And so I wanted to try and keep the buckling to a minimum. So I have taped off approximately a 1/4 inch all around. I did use painter's tape. I did use the diffuse the stickiness on the jeans method of making, you know, hopefully when I pull it off it won't rip the paper, because that would be a drag if it did. And I am going to use the big quill brush for a background. This is, by the way, a Royal and Langnickel brush, watercolor brush. And I believe it's got Taklon bristles. And this is the number 8 brush. These hold a ton of water. I am going to do a washed out yellow background on this, and in order to do that I need some fresh yellow. So I am going to use the lemon yellow, and we'll just put it right here. As you can see, that's just a tiny bit, but that will go an awful long way. And then I am also going to use a tiny bit and we'll see if that's enough. It should be, of the titanium white. And some nice clean water. And I'll just mix down a nice light yellow. Okay. Definitely need to add more water there. And more paint. Not going to worry about getting it right, you know, right up to the edge, just close, because I don't want to bleed and the reason why I used Inktense is because it's supposed to be permanent, so I am hoping that the Inktense wouldn't bleed into the, you know, into the yellow background, but I'm not so convinced of that that I need to put it to the test, you know what I mean? Whoops. Okay. So if that happens, just see, and get that out of there. Looks like I can. No disasters, just learning experiences. I'm not sure that this yellow was the right choice, but I can always change it later. I'm going to turn the page here. And I love this big tray. This palette was a gift from Kenny, and I love that I've been able to put both sets of gouache on it and have room to be able to mix in between and use bits from both sets, because they do have different colors, although I haven't mixed the colors yet using the two sets. But there's, I mean, as you can see, there is plenty of room on this palette. Those are the Royal and Langnickel over there. Here's the Artezas over here. Yeah, the yellow might have been the wrong choice. I might let that dry and go with maybe a second coat, making that a much more white. You know, I'll go over it with white. You know, with a barely, you know, just yeah, probably a watered white, and see if I can't knock down the brightness of that yellow, because it is fairly bright, and I'm losing the definition of the yellow in the background there. I want to make this a little bit of a different color. So not yet a disaster, just a learning experience. We'll see how it works out. In the meantime, while we're waiting for that one to dry, I'll clean my brush. I'm going to guess that I'm freaking you guys out all over the place. Every time I hit pause on the record, you know, to cough up a lung or do whatever. This weather, you know, it's been rainy again. We had a bad rain a couple nights ago. Then we've had a couple days of sunshine, and then the temperature dropped again today. And in the meantime, all the trees are blossoming, and you know, I go out to my car, and it's covered in, you know, an eighth of an inch of yellow dust from the pollen. And it's just, you know, it's pretty funny. But I do manage to keep working on this in between turning on the camera. So I think when I left, I was talking about drawing. And if you have a desire to draw, draw. Absolutely. Pick up a pen. That's what I did. I don't know. It came out of the blue. I had never drawn anything, and I just started to draw one day and working on my 10th book now. So don't ever let anybody stifle your dreams. I guess maybe that's been the whole point of this video. And I wanted to show you what I have done on this. As you can see, it's changed somewhat since I turned the video camera off. The first thing I did is I did lighten up the yellow with a washed out white, and even then it was still too plain. So then I went back in and used the green from, see that one, which is the same green that I used in the rings, the ruffle rings. And I washed it way down with white and a lot of water, and then I just did a wash over the yellow. And I think it came out looking really, really nice. And I also added, now for this, I used my watercolor pens and a ruler, or, my water-based markers, I guess, and a ruler, and just put a matching frame around the outside of it. So I think it is dry, and it should be ready to pull the little doohickeys off. Once again, I use the jeans method, and I always use painter's tape because it's, for some reason, it never sticks to the paper enough to actually to rip it. It just peels right off and holds it pretty flat. So we now have another one that's done. I've made another video. I have hopefully encouraged some of you to simply create art for art's sake. And don't worry if it's good. Once again, I'm getting to learn my tools. I just keep working it until you get it to a point that you either like it or trash it. I happen to like the way this turned out, and so it is going to get a little signature here, and this will be the next one that I work on. I'm going to do this one off camera though, or maybe I'll do it on camera but in a separate video. Let's see, I am signing these with my number 8 micron. And once again, let's see, which side do I want? I want to sign this one on this side. Uh-oh. There we go. Another one done. Actually, I think maybe next I will finish this one. And then I'll start to work on that one. But in the meantime, I also already started this one. Just testing out what I wanted for that. And so the project continues. Until the next time, please color something pretty. Check out my books, buy my dragons, check out my Etsy shop. All of the links for everything that I have to offer and that I do are down below. And until we meet again, color something pretty. And thank you, everybody, for watching.